Welcome back to the 2025 APAICS Energy and Commerce Summit. I'm Tanya Layden, Vice President of Development and External Affairs. Our next panel is The Future of Agriculture and Food Access. Agricultural innovation is accelerating at an unprecedented pace. From precision farming and climate-smart tools to advanced livestock management, new technologies are transforming the way food is produced, delivering higher yields, reducing the need for water, fertilizer, and pesticides, and lowering costs throughout the supply chain. Please join me in welcoming Congressman Shri Thanedar, an executive member of CAPAC. He represents Michigan's 13th Congressional District and serves on the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. We are honored to have him with us today. Please welcome Congressman Thanedar to the summit.
Hello, this is Congressman Shri Thanedar. I represent Michigan's 13th Congressional District in the United States Congress, and I'm a proud member of the House Agriculture Committee. Now, before I came to Congress, I was a serial entrepreneur who ran small businesses many years. I know firsthand the important role innovators like yourself play in the economy and the role of the government in creating a regulatory framework that protects consumers while allowing innovators to do what they do best. That is, create outside-of-the-box solutions that make everyone better off. The innovation is especially important in the agricultural sector. Due to numerous agricultural innovations, we have seen a dramatic increase in agricultural productivity and a decline in food insecurity throughout the globe. However, this is still a significant food insecurity issue in the United States, and we cannot rest until food is readily available to all Americans. Instead of the partisan attacks we are seeing on the Agriculture Committee that are putting more than $300 billion in food assistance on the chopping block, we need a bipartisan farm bill with a strong nutrition title that allows for the pro-innovation regulatory framework and reduce food insecurity. Rest assured that I am doing everything I can today on the Agriculture Committee to support innovators like you. Thank you for the honor of addressing your panel today. By crafting regulations that allow innovations to thrive, we will create an agricultural sector where innovation is the norm.
I'm pleased to introduce our moderator for this panel, Mike Glymph. Mike is the Vice President of Government Relations on the Agriculture and Food team at Monument Advocacy. He brings government relations experience from the private and nonprofit sectors with deep expertise in hunger issues, child nutrition, the Farm Bill, appropriations, spirits, and related tax policy. Please welcome Mike and our panelists.
Tanya, thank you for that great introduction. Also, too great to hear from the Congressman as well. We want to welcome everybody to our panel to discuss the future of agriculture and food access as well. We have a distinguished panel here today to discuss how policymakers, corporate entities, and elected officials can work together to really talk about the issues of sustainability, food access around nutrition, and other innovative ways to reach people as it relates to food access. I'm going to introduce the panel here. But I'll also to save time for people to introduce themselves individually as well. To start off, we have Lanon Baccam, who was a USDA appointee under President Obama and Biden as well. We have Sarah Towles, who is the Senior Director of Government Relations at PepsiCo. We have Sarah Brenholt, who is the Director of International Government Relations at Cargill. And we also, too, we have Assemblymember Stephen Raga, who represents the 30th District of New York. But now I'll turn it over to Sarah from Pepsi to give a brief introduction about yourself.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate the introduction. I'm Sarah Towles. I'm with PepsiCo. I've been with PepsiCo for almost 8 years. And obviously, PepsiCo is our flagship brand, but we have a lot of other brands that fall under the PepsiCo umbrella, like Frito-Lay, Quaker, Gatorade, Sabra, just to name a few. And we're one of the largest food and beverage companies in the world. We operate in more than 200 countries. We have over 318 employees across the world, 130,000 which are in the US. So very much an agricultural company and excited to be here today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Now I'll turn it over to the other Sarah. We have two Sarahs on the panel today. But Sarah Brenholt from Cargill, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Mike, for inviting me here today. I'm very honored to be part of this panel. So I am with Cargill International Government Relations. I've been with Cargill for almost 3 years right now. The focus of my work primarily now is on Western Hemisphere. So trade, sustainability, all of those things that are so important to our businesses throughout the region. But a little bit about Cargill too. So Cargill began as a single grain storage facility at the end of a railroad line in Iowa in 1865. So 160 years later, Cargill has grown to become a trusted partner for food, agriculture, financial, and industrial customers around the world. We have operations in 70 countries, have about 150,000 people that work for Cargill and do business in 125 countries globally. Thank you so much for the invitation today.
Thank you, Sarah. Lanon, introduce yourself.
Mike, thank you. And Sarah, I grew up right behind a Cargill plant in my hometown of Mount Pleasant, born and raised in a small town in rural Iowa. I spent 10 years across two administrations working at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I've worked in various other aspects of farming, ranching in my past as well, primarily focused on veterans and their transition into the ag industry, which is a passion of mine. And most recently, was a Democratic nominee for Congress here in Iowa's 3rd District last cycle in 2024.
Thank you. Then Assemblymember Raga.
Thanks, Mike. Happy to join everybody today, being here with this distinguished panel. I'm Assemblymember Steve Raga. I represent District 30 in Western Queens in New York City. I represent some of the most diverse districts, not in just the state of New York, but in America. The districts of and neighborhoods comprising Elmhurst, Jackson Heights, Woodside are over 51% API. Not all monolith. We're very, very proud to represent our community in our district. I also serve as a member of the Committee on Agriculture in the New York State Legislature, as well as a member of the newly formed Task Force on Food, Farm, and Nutrition Policy. So I'm looking forward to chopping it up and going in knee deep for our discussion here. Happy to be here and looking forward to it.
Thank you, Assemblymember Raga. I'm going to turn it back over to you to talk about your viewpoint on being in the Agriculture Committee within the State Assembly. I know that the session just wrapped up, so can you talk about some of the wins that the state legislature was able to pass as it relates to food access and agriculture innovation?
Yeah, for sure. So it's my 3rd year now on the Ag Committee here in New York State. But this year particularly, especially during the budget process, we wanted to make sure that we're supporting our farmers and agricultural workers throughout the city and the state. On our committee, it's very much bipartisan. We work together in ensuring that our residents have food, our workers have the resources they need and safe conditions. But because of the help of our committee chair, Don Lupardo, our speaker, Carl Hasty, the Ways and Means chair, Gary Pretlow. Our committee was able to secure various wins for New Yorkers throughout the state. A really important piece that we won this year was the Farm Worker and Farm Workforce Retention Tax Credit. Now, this goes until 2029. So this gives tax credit to farm employers with $1,200 per eligible employer to help offset the rising labor costs. So we've heard from top down from all corners of our state. When people think New York, you're kind of thinking where I am in the 5 boroughs. The 2nd largest economy in the state is agriculture. We're very proud of that. And I think this is the way to help ensure that farmers and farm workers can help offset any cost and make sure that New Yorkers are fed.
Absolutely. I think, from where I sit at, I focus a lot on federal government relations and what's happening in Congress, but even more importantly is what's happening on the local level as well. But to that transition over to the federal side, Lanon, you served under both Obama and Biden administrations at the USDA. So, from your perspective, what were some of the programs, success stories that help expand access to agriculture innovation and food access as well during your times under both administrations?
Sure. And I think it's really important for folks who are listening in today to just have a better snapshot of what our ag industry looks like. In particular, small farms represent 89% of our operations around the country. They control about 45% of the land and 18% of the production value. So the vast majority of people, when you think of farmers and the people that you actually meet at your farmers market, those are the small farmers. They actually have challenges when it comes to having an profit margin that's actually viable. Most of these small farms require off-farm income in order to keep afloat, and that's challenging for a lot of situations. So it's really important for us to understand that as the baseline. Obviously, ag is big, and it's a deeply interconnected, decentralized system that requires the big and the small. And so the programs that we ran at USDA were critical in having to touch on all those components, from commodity programs and support systems to crop insurance to the beginning farmer rancher development program, and focusing in on our underserved communities, helping new farmers get into the business. Those are all key components that actually will work together to make a stronger, more robust food system.
Thank you for that. So Sarah, at Cargill is a large corporation that helps feed a lot of people across the world. And I know the mission of Cargill is to nourish the world in a safe and responsible, sustainable way. With the growing pressures of climate, evolving consumer demand, how is Cargill living out this initiative and mission across the organization?
Yeah, Mike, thank you so much for that question. So innovation, I think, is critical for Cargill across our entire portfolio, for all of our supply chains, whether we're talking about bioindustrial products, whether we're talking about innovations in food, or innovations in really just the way that we do business. So we're always looking for what is next and how can we make it better. We've been in business for 160 years and look to be in business for another 160. And innovation, I think, is really key to all of that. So as we explore new technologies, we are committed to using those in a very safe and responsible way. But really what it boils down to is agriculture is both a contributor and a critical solution for climate change. Driving innovation and scaling decarbonization across agricultural value chains can strengthen food systems, reduce emissions, and unlock new opportunities for farmers and our customers. This may be a controversial topic in some circles, but we really believe in the urgency of climate change, and we believe that is right now. So that requires companies all across sectors, including those in the energy, construction, agriculture, food and beverage, to really redesign the products that they are using with a lower carbon footprint while maintaining a superior performance. One of the things that we pride ourselves on at Cargill is our bioindustrial sector. So that is taking products and making them from renewable sources that replace the traditional petrochemical products that we use every day. Some of those renewable fuels, or that can be different ingredients, nature-derived ingredients, to sustainably unleash the power and potential of agriculture for a new tomorrow, while also giving farmers a different market for their crops.
Oh, thank you for that, Sarah. Now, Sarah from PepsiCo, on this kind of theme of how corporations are being involved to expand food access, sustainability as well. I get to work with you a lot with your role at Pepsi. Can you talk about PepsiCo's kind of like supply chain and how that works with you all buying a number of commodities every year, and how that filters to help underserved communities?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mike. So let me start by just saying PepsiCo is very much an agricultural company. So we work with over 12,000 farmers throughout our supply chain, and we just source a vast amount of commodities from the US. I mean, 1.6 million metric tons of potatoes, 1.4 million metric tons of corns, just to give you some example of the commodities we're purchasing. So really increasing access to food starts with the beginning of the value chain and the work we're doing with our farmers. So creating a more resilient, sustainable agriculture system that increases production while protecting against extreme weather events, water scarcity, and other risks is really where it starts. So what this means in practice for companies like PepsiCo is supporting farmers within our value chain to adopt practices that will build soil health, reduce emissions, improve watershed health, and enhance biodiversity. And by adopting these practices, farmers can really increase their overall productivity, and that increases the availability of food and creates better livelihoods for those that are looking for food security. So that's one thing that PepsiCo thrives on. We're partnering with our farmers to make sure they can do some of these practices, from investing in technology and giving them technology, sharing best practices with our farmers, and doing all these things to make sure, the food security really starts with agriculture.
Thank you. In this theme of food insecurity, trying to solve that issue across the United States and the globe as well, especially again locally, Assemblymember Raga, I know you have a bill that you introduced called the Right to Food. And essentially, if this bill was passed, it would create a constitutional amendment that would guarantee a nutritious, sufficient, and quality food for all New Yorkers. Can you talk a little bit about the status of that bill and how that bill would help the AAPI community?
Yes, for sure. As many know, just a few years ago, the UN passed a resolution for the right to food around the world. So I introduced this bill because my borough has one of the largest API communities, like I mentioned, but also has the highest rate of food insecurity. Over 30% of adults in Queens are worried about not having their next meal, don't know where they're going to get it. And I've seen this firsthand throughout my district and throughout our neighborhoods. Food pantries continue to serve longer and longer lines, and the influx of SNAP cases in my office has seen an exponential rise. So even during COVID, when down the line you would see, or down the street, you'd see more and more folks on food pantries, it has not stopped. But instead of outside on the streets, we see it inside at the schools. Now the schools are having to develop their own food pantries, and they're asking for help too. So guaranteeing the right to food in our state constitution would enshrine this as an actual positive obligation and human right for New York State. Although we haven't passed it yet, we do see the state taking steps to guaranteeing this right through right now this year, Universal School Meals and Food Access Expansion Grant Program, which increases food access for those living in food deserts. So it might take a while, like Universal School Meals took a few years, but now every student in New York is given that. Also would like to note that Maine enshrined a similar amendment into their constitution in 2021 to recognize such a right. So we're looking to have New York follow up.
No, I think that's great. I used to work for Feed America, Association of Food Banks, trying to solve hunger across the U.S. And as we know, there are a number of people who are also too are food insecure, but not eligible to participate in a lot of federal nutrition programs. So what you're doing in New York is very valuable to help solve that issue. As we stay on this kind of theme of food insecurity and solving food insecurity, I want to go back to the corporate aspect of this. Sarah, I know Pepsi has a foundation for good that helps provide after-school meals and school meals for children facing food insecurity as well. So can you talk a little bit about that and Pepsi's role within that area?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mike. And, this is just building on some of the good work that is happening at the state level and the federal level. But as we all know, food security is just such a critical issue in the United States. And one way PepsiCo is addressing hunger is through our foundation program, Food for Good, that you mentioned. And this program actually started back in 2009, and it allows Pepsi to collaborate with more than 50 nonprofits and food banks throughout the U.S. to distribute nutritious meals for families that really need it. So a great example is a partnership that emerged in our Food for Good program during COVID. We joined forces with Baylor University's Collaborative on Hunger and Poverty, and we continued their Meals to You summer demonstration project. So it really allowed us to provide stable and reliable food to children delivered to them in rural areas where they otherwise didn't have access to grocery stores or traditional summer meal sites. And during the pandemic, this program was critical. We were serving over 3 million meals a week. So I can't imagine what kind of access issues these families are having. So being able to have real reliable food sources was so important. And we continue to innovate. I think looking forward, we're pursuing innovations with the No Kid for Hungry, specifically through their program innovation team. And we're already working, for example, in the state of Virginia, we've had approximately 2,000 families sign up for a specific program we're working with. And this, again, is where we'll be providing shelf-stable meals throughout the summer months, which is some of the hardest time for kids to get meals because they're not at school. So it's really important work, and glad we can help in areas where they need.
Absolutely, so valuable. As we stay on this theme of breaking down barriers to food access, Lanon, I know you talked about earlier supporting our farmers, especially smaller farmers as well. So can you talk about your time period at the USDA and some of the barriers you saw to break down food access and how to support those smaller farmers more?
Sure, absolutely. And, just to touch on what Sarah and Stephen just mentioned, the reality is, for the feeding programs that we have, whether it be through school nutrition programs or if it's through SNAP, these are all programs that go back to the American farmer. And for every dollar that's spent, 7 cents goes back to that farmer. But there's a bigger, broader system that it goes into as well. 43 cents of that goes back into the processing, the packaging, the transportation. That kid who is at the grocery store down the street, who wants his first job as a teenager, can get that job because we are spending money in our communities. And so it's critically important for us to understand and appreciate and recognize that these programs have a deeper impact on our communities than people realize than just the folks who are utilizing them. Now, from my perspective at USDA, some of the challenges, primarily, it comes down to capital. Farming and ranching is an incredibly risky business. You could do everything perfectly. You could buy the best seeds, you could have a little bit of land, you could plant it at the right time. And like we saw in 2020, a derecho could come through and just flatten all your crops to no fault of your own. And so it's incredibly hard for someone to take that kind of risk. So it's important for us to have that safety net system that helps people get into the business, whether it is through loans for small and new beginning farmers, crop insurance, not just for our commodities, but for specialty crops too. That's really, really important. And as we can see from our Asian producers across the country, who represent 0.8% of all farmers, they primarily grow specialty crops. 47% of the production is in specialty crops for our Asian producers. So we want to make sure that when they get into this business, that they, one, have the capital to be able to do it, but two, the safety net to protect them when they are actually operating.
Absolutely. I work on a couple of agriculture real estate issues. And we often hear what you just talked about as well, Lanon, is that for young and beginning farmers, the capital is the biggest issue for them to start their farms or to keep their farms that may be passed down by their families as well. Sarah, from Cargill's perspective, and to piggyback off a little bit what Lanon was talking about with farmers, working with small farmers, how is Cargill building out a sustainable and resilient food system across the globe in partnership with farmers?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And Lanon, to just kind of piggyback off your comments too. I mean, farmers are at the heart of the agricultural supply chain. Without farmers, there's no food. So it is vital that we support them through every step of the process. And going along with that, is the sustainability component of all of that. A healthy planet is vital for us all. So sustainability guides our decision-making. It is embedded in our purpose, to nourish the world in a safe, responsible, and sustainable way. Our actions today help create a more sustainable supply chain from farm to fork. So working alongside our farmer customers, NGOs and governments, we can deliver impact at scale needed for our people and its planet. So we look at that at Cargill in three distinct areas that kind of make up the triangle of sustainability. So that's climate, land and water, and then people. So again, the farmer livelihoods, and then the people in the communities that we serve. So climate, we have goals around this, pretty simple. Our goal is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in our supply chain by 30% per ton of products sold by 2030. And we are well on our way to doing that. So we're working to reduce emissions within our operations and within our global supply chain. So this includes increasing renewable energy projects, working with our partners around the world to improve environmental impact, supporting farmers on things like regenerative agriculture. In North America, we have been working with farmers to transition nearly 1 million acres of land into regenerative agriculture practices. This has been happening since 2020. And we know that the benefits of regenerative agriculture improve soil health, soil water holding capacity, water quality, reduces erosion, increases soil carbon sequestration, and enhances biodiversity, on and on and on. And then with that, obviously, comes the water and land portion of that. So we are working to transform the food system, again, to be more sustainable, recognizing that there's not a one-size-fits-all approach, that we need a holistic approach, and we need to use a lot of different techniques to make sure that farmers have the right tools that they need to be able to implement those practices, whether it is no-till agriculture, whether it is drip irrigation, whether it is cover cropping. We need a smart mix of those tools, and farmers need to be able to have a smart mix of those tools to implement whatever process makes the most sense for the type of farm that they have. So as we continue to expand the breadth of our sustainability programs and respond to the global challenges, that we make sure that we deliver with purpose. And then finally, just along those same lines, just making sure that farmers and our customers are supported through those efforts. Building out improved livelihoods to make sure that there's equitable, inclusive, and resilient food system as well.
Assemblymember Raga, as we talk about tailoring legislation to help smaller farmers, legislation to help the AAPI community, how have you been able to champion that style of legislation, your role in the New York Assembly, whether that's with the bill that you have to guarantee the right of nutritious food to all New Yorkers, or some of the issues that Sarah just talked about, sustainability and climate as well?
Yeah, Mike, thanks. That's a good question for sure. Now, again, because we have such a diverse community, we need to take a holistic approach to address a lot of these needs and priorities. As mentioned, my district's over 50% AAPI, but we have a growing Bangladeshi community, Little Manila, big Filipino community in my district, a growing Nepali community, Indonesian community, but a historic Indian, Chinese community as well. But little other pockets. Now there's Little Thailand is also in our district. So we have a lot of different pockets of different communities. So even though there might be a bill or a nice legislative approach to something, we want to make sure we articulate the benefits of that and get that community on board earlier than later, right? So, but to be more reflective of the needs of the residents, I think one of the bills that we introduced is A3375, which is halal food for in schools, so that our kids that are in schools can have that option for those that need it. That would impact our large Bangladeshi community and Arab American community in the district. Regarding, in general, our API community, where I'm on a co-sponsor of the API education bill that would help have a curriculum in New York State schools that would be reflective and teach our API history, our heroes and heroines, and also our many contributions we have in our city and our state and our country. And then lastly, for the last few years, through our coalition members, we've passed $30 million every year recently for a historic investment for the API nonprofit and community organizations, recognizing the importance for linguistic and culturally responsive services. So that's big and that's huge, and we continue to push that effort. But there's so many ways that through policy and legislation, we try to impact not just our large API community, but a community that historically, since the pandemic, has still been seeing the offsets. Elmhurst Hospital, which was deemed the epicenter of COVID-19, is in my district. That's my local hospital. It's down the street. And so the families, friends, our small businesses are still seeing the aftershocks, feeling it still to this day. So we try to make sure we're not just delivering for them, but making it inclusive in such a diverse community.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important, the work that you're doing to make sure that everything is equitable as the legislation that you're focused on. I know with the time remaining here, we have a number of Hill staffers and other policymakers watching us today. So I want to go around and talk a little bit more about policy solutions at the federal level as well, that corporate entities and other policymakers can push as it relates to the Farm Bill, child nutrition. So Sarah, from Pepsi's standpoint, what are some of the policy priorities that you are focused on for the rest of this year to help address this issue of food access and innovation around agriculture?
Thanks, Mike. That's a great question. I think you mentioned a couple off the bat there. The Farm Bill being probably the biggest one. That's a huge priority for PepsiCo. I think it provides certainty for farmers. It also, as you all know, includes, a lot of important nutrition programs like SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And I think, PepsiCo supports having these strong programs and to make sure people have access, right? And some of that is also making sure that people are able to make choices for what they want to purchase on the SNAP program, and other things within the Farm Bill that are really critical to access that you may not think of right away, like nutrition education, also funding for regenerative agricultural practices that both the two Sarahs talked about in terms of how that actually ends up allowing for greater production and greater yields for farmers. All those things make a huge difference for food access. So I know, obviously I'm coming from the federal perspective. I'm on our federal team, so watching a lot of that legislation very closely.
Lanon, I know you mentioned some of the priorities that could help smaller farmers and younger farmers as it relates to the Farm Bill. But how would you build on some of the programs that you mentioned as Congress may look to pass a Farm Bill this year?
Sure. And Mike, I just hope that the folks who are listening just take a deeper look at our industry here. I do truly believe America's food and ag system is critically important for national defense. We have to be able to produce the food that we eat here at home. And so ensuring that we have strong and robust systems, policies, and programs that support our farming and ranching industry are really, really important. Obviously, the Farm Bill is going to be really critical on that. But let's not forget here that, again, going back to my remarks at the top, the vast majority of people who farm are small farmers. And most of them are having a hard time making an income that will support them with just farming. They need that off-farm income to survive. And a lot of the time, that off-farm income actually goes back into the farm itself. That means we also need to have a really strong rural America. And so for the rural economic development programs in which we can focus on that support these communities, bringing high-speed broadband internet to these towns across the country, making sure that we have good conservation programs, and just looking at it holistically as a big interconnected industry. That would be where I would start if I was focusing in on writing policy in that next Farm Bill.
To build on that, Lanon, I think that's so critically important as you talk about securing our food system here in the United States. So Sarah, from Cargill's perspective, what are some of the policy priorities that you're all focused on for the Farm Bill? I know that you all have been pushing to have one passed. Like the rest of us, there has not been a Farm Bill passed fully since 2018. So we're a little bit lapsed. That's the way things move in Congress these days. So can you talk about Cargill's perspective on the Farm Bill and some of the policy priorities?
Yeah, happy to touch on that for a little bit. And I basically just going to echo what everybody else said. I mean, the Farm Bill is vital to the success of American agriculture. We are pleased to see that much of it was included in this reconciliation package, but I think there's still some more work to do. And I think one aspect that we'd like to touch on maybe a little bit more too is just farmer security across the board. Securing farmers access to stable, dependable markets, supporting productive and profitable farms, and investing in prosperous communities is what makes America strong. And I know we already touched on that a lot, but just reiterate that point that, farmers and the food that they produce is what makes America strong. So, some of the things that I think that we were glad to see that were included in the reconciliation package are the commodity reference prices, the crop insurance programs were added into that. This is really good news for farmers. So we are really happy that was included. The MAP, the marketing promotion campaigns, and then FMD, the foreign marketing programs were also included in reconciliation. So again, being on the international side of things, that is vitally important. 1 in 5 acres of American agricultural land goes to export. So making sure that farmers have a place for the crops that they go is vitally important as well. I wouldn't be. I need to talk to you a little bit about SNAP and the FAP programs. Those were decreased in reconciliation, and we were, not as pleased as we'd like to be to see that. But we just need to make sure that people have access to the food that they need, and that it is safe and that it is affordable and that they have the choice to do so. The big things that I think that we'd like to call out that we think that would be important to see in a passage of a farm bill by September 30th that the reconciliation didn't include are continued investments to support research and conservation programs, more support for those, reauthorizing marketing programs. We talked a little bit about innovation and bioindustrial products. Bio-preferred program is part of that. And then continued investments in biotechnology, such as grants for biorefineries that support rural economies. Again, making sure that farmers have a place for the crops that they go. Those are all some of the priorities I think that we would see.
Absolutely. And as we have this federal conversation, I want to take it back to the state and local level with Assemblymember Raga. So Assemblymember Raga, from your perspective, how can federal policymakers, the federal government work better with state governments and local governments to pass policies, again, that provide innovation to agriculture and expand food access?
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a great question. I think every level of government needs to do a better job in working together. It's very much top down, but bottom up. And working on the state, I work hand in hand with my congressional and representatives, but also with my city council and my counterparts in New York City and in the borough of Queens. If there are regular meetings that compromise specific topics, but also maybe if we could just have specific tours of different facilities, especially in upstate New York, because sometimes if you live in the more urban part of the state, you might be devoid in any experiences of seeing firsthand some of why we need to allocate some funds or provide some policies for businesses and farmers that you might never have met before. So I think more exchange, dialogue, and in-person opportunities is crucial to moving forward as one city, state, and country.
With the time we have left, we'll do a quick round robin. Can everyone share how policymakers and Hill staff can stay in contact with you? So I'll start with Sarah from PepsiCo.
Great question, Mike. I would say, we just mentioned visiting plants and facilities and tours. We love to do those with members from the state and federal legislature. So we love to be a resource for folks. Sometimes they don't think of us right away on agriculture issues or, transportation issues, but we're really that's part of all our supply chains. So just keeping the dialogue open, I think, is important, and knowing, how industry wants to try and make sure food access is critical for people and how we can help too and be a resource.
Sarah from Cargill, if you want to go next.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that question. I think all of it. Cargill has a very unique perspective because of our place in supply chain. You know, we are able to kind of see things from a different perspective and provide some institutional knowledge, you know, whether that's, for data modeling, for long-term, short-term, it's our experience with having been in the agricultural sector for so long. So please use this as a resource here in DC or throughout the country. You know, good chance that there is a Cargill facility close to your home district. And if not, we would love to have you for a tour at any one of our locations throughout the United States as well. We are an open door and we welcome that dialogue. I think one of the things that is most important too is having that open dialogue and being able to understand different perspectives on the Farm Bill, on policy as we move forward. And if we don't have that open conversation, we aren't going to get anywhere. So we very much welcome that here at Cargill.
Lanon, if you want to offer.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and invite everyone to Iowa for sweet corn, since I can't invite you to a facility to come tour it. But, number one producer of pork in the country, come get a pork tenderloin. Come check out everything Iowa's got to offer here. It's pretty great. But again, just for the folks who are listening, I hope you do walk away and to continue to keep in mind the people who are actually producing the food that we eat, and the incredible challenges that they face. The fact that, in a 5-year period from 2017 to 2022, we lost 140,000 farms, 7% of our operations, 2.2% of our agricultural lands came out of production. That's a lot of land, a lot of farmers to lose in a short amount of time. And so we have to continue to focus on how do we keep these operations in business? How do we support them? And how do we keep American agriculture strong?
Mm-hmm.
Then Assemblymember Raga, how can folks stay in contact with you as well?
Yeah, for sure. Everyone is welcome to feel free to reach out to me. You can call my office or email me any policy ideas or suggestions at ragas@nyassembly.gov, or feel free to message us on our social medias at Raga for Queens on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, wherever you want. But either way, I think everyone has great ideas, great solutions. And if that's some way that we could alert our legislators earlier, the better, then my office is always open to any suggestions, and we can start working on the legislative side. Looking forward to possibly working with anybody.
Great. Well, I want to thank all of you all for joining the panel today. I've personally learned a lot that I can take back to my work. But again, this approach to solving food access, agriculture innovation is done at the local level, the federal level, and the global level as well. And to Lanon's point, we always must remember the people who produce our food, our farmers, especially our smaller farmers as well. So thank you again.